Mr. Kendrick has done nothing but work on his music.
Well, we call it dry snitching. You telling on yourself.
And we also wrote on niggas.
This is called confession. This ain't rap, this is a confession. Over a beat.
It shows the desperation of the state that they have to reach to that level.
Because I don't have those things. I wish I had them, but they got rid of it. Ladies and gentlemen, they are guilty of every single count that they are both charged with.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. After 166 days of intense testimony, shocking twists, heated confrontations, exposure, from leaked interrogation videos to stolen property, who got to watch, to the witnesses come up here and changing the state's whole plot, to some even lying and changing their story on the spot, we finally reached the closing arguments in the YSL RICO trial. This is the state versus the defense one last time. But will the prosecution be able to convince the jury that Young Thug and YSL are at the heart of a criminal conspiracy? Or will the defense be able to dismantle the state's case, leaving the jury with more questions than answers? Will the state's closing arguments finally be what they need to connect the dots? Or will the defense win this case beyond a reasonable doubt? Man, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Definitely tap that notification bell and definitely tap that like. Y'all know the vibes. Grab a seat. We finna dig deep.
And then we're going to walk through this now. We're going to talk about Donovan Thomas first, overt acts 16 through 20.
Atlanta for the citizens for
yes, police over here on the north side of McDaniel.
North side of McDaniel. Why did you shoot?
Yeah, at Heron Limited Barber Shop. Somebody don't got shot.
Mr. Parker, you testified. He was on a barber shop there for 20 years. Barber shop right here. And Kendrick, Stillwell, this is Demise McMullen. Now, we'll talk about this in a minute. This is actually the photograph from when they shot Dexter Montgomery. Same case with D'Angelo White when they left that Jonesboro gas station in Lakewood and got to the four-way stop. That's the photograph of that. So you have Nard, but that's Demise McMullen, Shannon, Stillwell, Kendrick. This is obviously the shooting. Overt act is, did Jeffrey Williams rent the Infiniti Q50 and act in furtherance of the conspiracy? When you think about these overt acts, think how the criminal objectives. Ms. Hilton's going to talk to you and walk through bit by bit the murder itself of Donovan Thomas. But I argue to you, as she will too, that has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and that renting of the Infiniti is an overt act that was used to facilitate the murder, and you've seen a pattern of rental cars being used. And ask yourself why. They're harder to trace. People don't recognize you in that car. Now, how is Donovan Thomas's murder evidence of RICO? Well, I'm gonna tell you. That's Donovan Thomas. This is about to be Wooney Lee.
Before y'all nigga with slime. This shit is in blood. We wrote this shit in blood. I probably had him slime. And we also wrote it on niggas.
So let's dig. Now, if you pay attention, what the state is actually doing is they're actually focusing on 2 actual incidents and a potential of 3. The one with Nate, the demise of Mr. McMullen, and Shamel Drinks. Those are the 3 incidents that the state is just trying their best to connect the dots. Because remember, if they can get Shannon for this actual situation, they also got Ye. Let's dig.
We wrote it on a tombstone. And that's Donovan Thomas's gravestone. And when Miss Edmonds, who testified to you about recognizing that, she didn't wipe graffiti, she didn't wipe paint off that tombstone, she wiped a confession. And that confession says slapped, because that's who it's for, that's who it's from, that's who publicly has acknowledged that murder since it happened. YSL, the criminal enterprise. And that same slat in green handwriting, Defendant Stillwell is posting in, 7 years later in a slime t-shirt, right, peanut stone gray. That's the translation version, he put it in Spanish. Wooney Lee's comment, his comment, they're all talking about and kind of joking sheepishly about a murder of Donovan Thomas. It's we, it's us, it's criminal enterprise. Now, we talked about Kendrick's tattoo, which is about to come up, on his left forearm. I don't know when he got this tattoo, when the Zoom works with me and it comes up. I don't know if he had that tattoo of slat on his arm while he's driving the Infiniti Q50 past 330 McDaniel Street and Nard and Shannon shot and killed Donovan Thomas, but that same green slat ends up on the gravestone. It's not a coincidence. And they're telling you that they did it, and they just don't care, because as you said when we started, slimes are above the law, but they didn't think about you. Now, you hear it as clear as I hear it. I swear to God, nobody accused Dolly of murdering Donovan Thomas. Who's the we? And then you hear in the background, we smoke nut. And if you remember that call, right before that, Woody saying, tell your brother I love him. And then you can hear Jeffrey Williams say, tell him I love him. Right there next to him. We killed Nut. We put it on his tombstone. Slat, slat, and then just making a cheapest joke this years later. They're telling you we did it. They just don't care. And that's Shannon Stillwell in that same video, and there's a live snake and a YSL chain. It's out in the open. Beat a murder rap.
What y'all think Shannon sitting right here thinking? Listening to his co-conspirator that's not on the case with him any longer because he took a plea from the case, from the state, sit up here, actually incriminate you and use this evidence against you. Knowing that it's an open case, I get it. You're supposed to taunt your ops and this is what sells and all of that, but it's an open case. Why would you actually say we spray painted his grave? At the level of disrespect. Now, it's a lot of stuff I can say that the state hasn't proved. I still can't honestly say that they proved this, that they are the ones directly responsible. And I'm not a big fan of coincidence. But what I will say is disrespect is disrespect, and that was the most disrespectful thing you can actually do. Playing with somebody's tombstone is one thing. They already unalive, that's another thing. But then to go graffiti the tombstone as well, shameful. So what you think Shannon's sitting here thinking with this being replayed right here in front of this jury?
Now, we're going to turn to Jamari Holmes next, and I'm going to explain to you why that murder that Rodelius Ryan and Damon Blaylock did is in furtherance of the YSL criminal street gang, which is Overt Act 79 through 81, February 23rd, 2019. That's the vehicle that 15-year-old Jamari Holmes was in. This is Rodelius Ryan. This is Blaylock throwing up YSL, which is also an overt act, that public display of allegiance. That's going to come up in just a second. That's Jamari Holmes. You're going to see the message where, where Mariah leaves and she says, or not Mariah, but Brazy, as they called her, text and DMs Ryan and Blaylock and says, they know about Ryan but don't know about you, and allude to Mariah snitching on them. That snitching comes up repeatedly. This is the projectile that was in Jamari Holmes' head that was fired from weapons that Rodelius Ryan and Damon Blaylock shot while they were hanging out with females in Cleveland Avenue. It came to 50 Mount Zion. And then I want to ask you, this is that message. All again, talking about snitching, trying to not get caught. Now, how do you know why Ryan did it? What does Ryan think about this murder? Is he remorseful? Is he sad? Well, here's him that same day at 5 o'clock.
All right, so the elephant in the room. Who killed Donovan Thomas? It's not our burden to solve this case, first of all. The jury instructions are clear. It's not our job to solve cases, especially cases that happened 9 years ago. But to the extent that it factors into the question of reasonable doubt that Mr. Stillwell committed that crime, let's just leave it like this. I know someone who has a closest associate named Deamonte Turner. I know of someone who is arch enemies with a man named Kelvin Watts, who's the brother of Donovan Thomas. I know of someone who, with Deamonte Turner, went and shot up Rich Homie Kwan's father's barbershop in 2014. I know of someone who stole Donovan Thomas's nut chain and wallet and cell phone out of his truck in late 2014, and when asked about it by the police, repeatedly lied about that situation, repeatedly pretended that him and Donovan Thomas were cool. I know someone who was jumped by Kelvin Watts in Club Crucial on January 6, 2015. I know someone who basically admitted on the stand, I'm listening, to shooting up the TIG studios at 675 Metropolitan Avenue on January 8, 2015, 2 days before Donovan Thomas's death. A shooting which shot a hole in Rich Homie Kwan's windshield. And if you recall from the officer who responded to the scene, a shooting that very well may have occurred while Donovan Thomas was present. Remember, I asked that officer, were there people there in the studio at the time? Yes, there were. Who were they? I don't know. They wouldn't open the door. They wouldn't come and answer. And I know someone who was put on the proverbial plate by Donovan Thomas on January 8th, 2015. Mr. Kokomo, could you please play DS24F?
I got somebody from his name. He was there. He everything. He called the night. Well, I forgot what day they got killed with it. It was a Friday night. They had no, it was a Thursday night. They had a barbecue. The barbecue did the barbecue. It was blood. Everything blood. And the whole meeting was based upon me. They was all in there talking about this and this, talking about this and this. So the nigga Mo was on the phone. So Mo told everybody, all I need, every last one of y'all, whoever 90s scraps here, whoever else the nickname, supposed to kill me. They gave all them guns. The same night, they gave every last one of guns. Said, treat me to a gas station and kill me. I forgot what else. But he called and he told me everything he said. Is this person in front of yours?
The whole meeting was based on me. Gave all of them guns. They were instructed to trick me to the gas station. This wasn't some universal Donovan Thomas after everyone. This wasn't Donovan Thomas after YSL. It certainly wasn't Donovan Thomas after Shannon Stillwell. They were after Kenneth Copeland. I know somebody who had the opportunity. Not only does cell phone records put him right in the area, but we know the car was, we know the shooting, the murder was perpetrated using a certain Infiniti. An Infiniti that was rented for Kenneth Copeland by Jeffrey Williams. Because Kenneth Copeland needed a car. An Infiniti that Kenneth Copeland was in possession of the day before the Donovan Thomas shooting. An Infiniti which was last known to be in the hands of Kenneth Copeland and Quindarius Zachary before, according to Kenneth Copeland, he handed it off to his good friend, closest associate, partner in shooting up Rich Homie Kwan's father's barbershop, Trevante Turner, also known as Threat. In conclusion, regarding count 2, ladies and gentlemen, there is an absolute lack of reliable evidence against Shannon Stillwell. He had no motive. His problems with all these people happened afterwards. Once APD falsely accused him, once the streets falsely accused him of committing this crime, that's when people started shooting at his head and shooting at cars he was riding in. He didn't have any problems with Donovan Thomas. There's no evidence of that. There's no forensics, no DNA, no cell phone records putting Shannon Stillwell at any scenes. He's not on the Texaco video. It's just 2 witnesses, both proven and admitted liars who changed their stories repeatedly on tape, right in front of all of us. Both people who had every reason to lie when they gave their stories. 2 people that were chosen by the state to be the key witnesses in the case. But 2 witnesses, to their credit, who at least came in here and owned up to the fact that they were weak. They chose themselves. They chose to lie on others to save themselves, and at least they came in and told you that. Other than that, there's no corroboration at all. All right.
See, here is where the case is really going to get tricky. You see, both sides are bringing up Mr. Copeland, a.k.a. Wood. But ask yourself this. What does the jury actually believe? Which side do they believe? The state, the defense, or would it? In my personal opinion, this was a detrimental witness when it really came to the case, because this piece of evidence that they're using from the state is definitely the most that can actually help build and break this case. Now, it's even more interesting because if the jury doesn't buy his actual investigation, what do they do? Wipe out the video interrogations? See, the defense really has their hands full, especially when it comes to these incidents, because the jury, from their perception, they actually have to ask themselves, why is he able to just continuously walk in and out of the courtroom? Why did the state offer him a plea? Now, I'm not saying that he's responsible for the demise of Nut, or him or Threat actually did it, but it's actually even more interesting because you have to pay attention to what the jury truly believes. Do you believe it was actually YSL orders, or you believe Woody did it? Or you believe it was Threat? Better yet, had they proved any connection to SB and Yak outside of association, speculation, and allegation? Remember, based off of RICO conspiracy, you're guilty by association. The state is only building off of one narrative, and that's that these individuals committed these acts, whether it was individual or not, they were premeditated thoughts. In order to what? Further or enhance the street name of what? YSL. So why do all these individuals keep on getting up here, wiping their nose, taking a picture, 5, 10 members taking pictures, throwing up the gang, XYZ? The state knows exactly what they're doing. They're painting a picture in the jury's mind just to help control the conspiracy. Let's dig.
Mr. Nichols, apparently confused, is trying to figure out what's going on, and he eventually leaves as well. Okay, pause. Pause. Okay. That fourth car, not Mr. Stillwell's car, that fourth car that has never been identified, has never been tested for gunshot residue, is now next to Mr. Drinks. And there's a fifth car driving up the street, driving up Windsor Street. And let's see what happens. Stop. Okay, back it up, Mr. Kokomo, a couple of seconds. Okay, pause. Okay, I want you to look closely. Right here, we're going to see the fifth car make a sudden U-turn. Is there someone in the street? Is there someone waiting at that car to make that U-turn? Is there an obstruction? Is there anything going on that would explain why that car makes that U-turn at that exact time? No, there's not. There's one explanation. Hold on, Mr. Kokomo. There's one explanation and one explanation only. That car hears a gunshot. And while that car makes a U-turn, I want you to look at Mr. Drinks' brake lights. They flicker on and off. That means he's not dead. He has not been shot in the neck yet. That's science. That's from Dr. Sim Stanley herself. What could be happening, I submit to you, because we don't know the order of the wounds, what could be happening, what makes the most sense, is that at this exact moment, that car that's next to Mr. Drinks fires a shot into the car. Remember, there's 2 wounds to Mr. Drinks, but there's really 3 shots, because one projectile ends up going into his arm, and it's on the seat, and it's collected by Miss Green, CST Green. Another projectile ends up, sadly, in his body, and is collected by the ME. A third projectile goes through Mr. Drinks' car because we see the exit wound, where the bullet exited Mr. Drinks' driver's side front door. So there's at least 3 shots that are fired into Mr. Drinks' car. I submit to you, at this exact moment, first shot is being fired, that car hears it, is making a U-turn, and Mr. Drinks is trying to react, perhaps moving around, going up and down off the brake, trying to figure out what's going on, perhaps trying to find the firearm that he has in his car, trying to figure out what's going on, as he's certainly not anticipating or expecting to be shot at that exact moment. That car, that white car, remains next to Mr. Drinks. Up. Back it up, Mr. Kokomo. And before he leaves, we see a slight flicker of the brake light right there. And then if we play it again, and no more flickers. At that moment, tragically, the fatal shot was fired from that fourth car into Mr. Drinks' red Versa, going into his neck, causing him to immediately lose all bodily control and eventually leading to his imminent death. And that white car, that fourth car, leaves the scene. That last brake light flicker was 34 seconds after Mr. Stillwell had already left. It is scientifically impossible that Mr. Stillwell killed Mr. Kendrick. Couple that with the gunshot residue test that proves that a gun was not fired from the car. Couple that with Mr. Stillwell's behavior, him not distancing himself from the car, but extending his rental. Couple that with the call that we heard on the wiretap.
Now, let's dig. Now, you definitely got to salute to the defense, because right now, this case is not about proving your points. It's about discrediting what the state says and actually creating beyond reasonable doubt in the jury's mind. Did Shard do that? Absolutely. First thing he did was attack the witnesses that were brought up here by the state and show that lack of investigations, the botched investigations, the framed narrative, no DNA, no gunshot residue. Then you have biased witnesses that are coming up here doing what? Working for the state, creating the state's narrative that they failed to what? Prove. So make that make sense. Now, even more interesting how Shard doubled back. That was strictly chess. He went right back after he actually went through the witness list to show how non-credible they were. To do what? Bring up the one witness that was credible, the medical examiner. That was huge, because that actual medical examiner's testimony on what she said is enough to actually either do what? Separate the lies from the truth, or enough to leave the jury confused. Let's dig.
Mr. Kendrick took advantage of that opportunity that Jeffrey helped him. But instead, law enforcement put a target on Jeffrey Williams' back, because God forbid anybody pull themselves out of that. Because what does society want to do? Drag them back again. Never let them leave their past behind. God forbid someone leave that behind and pull themselves out up from their bootstraps. That's what we tell ourselves as a country. If you work hard enough, you can pull yourself out. Let's see what you guys say. So I would argue that we have not wasted your time here for a year. I'm going to argue that the state hasn't wasted your time, that this court hasn't wasted your time, and that we can salvage something out of this year that we have taken from you. And that is to send a message. And you're going to send a message by going in the back, looking at the evidence that's presented to you, and I think any review of that evidence would have you come back with findings of not guilty on all the charges against Mr. Kendrick. Deamonte Kendrick is one of Jeffrey Williams' best friends. And as I said, he's a casualty of law enforcement's war on Jeffrey Williams. Mr. Kendrick is charged with racketeering, murder, and several other charges, about 4, all relating to drugs and guns that were found at Jeffrey Williams' house when Mr. Kendrick was over there visiting. What evidence, what testimony, what witnesses, what physical evidence has the state shown you? Well, wait, they are a gang, because look at these pictures of YSL wearing green clothing. That must mean they're a gang. You guys are mostly in blue and black. You associate with each other here today. Are you guys a gang? The state is all in red today. Are they a gang because they're all dressed in red? Poor Miss Hingerty happened to come in red today. I guess she's a member of the gang as well. It is absurd. Lil Wayne has ESPN on his arm. ESPN. I guess Lil Wayne is surprised that he's a member of YSL too. My client's got ESPN on his body. No, that can't be because he was a football star and then his mind probably liked ESPN. It must be because he's a member of a gang called YSL. So it's wonderful that the state's gang experts have such insights into the mental thinking of my client and Lil Wayne and everybody else. Now, the state may say, well, they're not a gang, even though they all dress in red today, looking quite dapper. Because, well, they don't have some criminal objective. Well, I don't know. Let's look at the way the state indicts people. The states around Investigator Viverito. Investigator Viverito is the last person I can find anywhere on video or that you've seen on video holding that missing $500,000 watch. Did she steal the watch? Was that an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy? Maybe I should go to a grand jury and try to indict this. It's the state gang or something ludicrous like that. Everything gang investigators see is viewed from the viewpoint of it must be a gang. Mr. Kendrick, look at the photo they showed you of Mr. Kendrick in the bandana shirt. Go back and look at it in color. The gang investigator says it's red. It is orange. Orange as the sun. You look at it, you decide, don't take my word for it, don't take their word for it, don't take the state's words for it. Use your own eyes. But when you're a gang investigator, everything has to fit the narrative. And that's the narrative. The snake on Mr. Kendrick's chest. Did he get that snake because YSL is a gang? Or did he get that snake because it represents the tree of knowledge in the Adam and Eve story? And he's trying to get his life in order again. And he's dragged back into this. State says one of the objectives was money and power. Where's the money flowing? Where's the money? Where's the money coming in? The state had the power of the courts, their subpoena power. They could have gotten Jeffrey Williams' banking and financial records. They could have subpoenaed his accountants. They could have gotten all of that to see the money flowing. Did they do it? No. Why didn't they do it? Well, I'm going to argue to you they didn't do it because there was nothing there. If they did it, it would undercut their case about seizing Mr. Williams' assets, about seizing $8 million worth of jewelry that he earned in the music business, about seizing all of those cars, about seizing the ring off of his finger and keeping it. We don't want to see those records because we don't want evidence that he earned all of this from his music and his hard work. No efforts of money and power as part of a conspiracy deriving from this gang. The judge is going to tell you in your instructions, mere association with an enterprise is insufficient by itself to establish a conspiracy to violate the RICO Act. Mere association. And that's what you have here, mere association. A bunch of guys that grew up together, were around each other, and that some of whom were trying to make it out, and some of whom were trying to help others make it out. Mr. Kendrick was trying to make it out. Mr. Kendrick would not let himself be thrown away like happened to Mr. Stevens. So I don't believe there's a conspiracy that's been shown beyond a reasonable doubt. What else has the state not shown? Well, they've not shown a lot, but I'm just going to focus on a few. The state hasn't shown that Deamonte Kendrick knowingly and willingly joined this conspiracy, and they must show that. Well, first of all, I understand their difficulty. I understand their problem. How do you show that you knowingly and willingly joined a conspiracy with a criminal purpose when one doesn't exist? So that's their first challenge. That's their first challenge. What did they do to try to show knowing and willing join? Well, he hung out with some guys that did some bad things. He allegedly is part of this YSL gang that's not a gang. And by the way, you heard testimony, Mr. Kendrick was signed to the YSL record label. So I guess he knowingly and willingly signed to the YSL record label. But that is not the same as knowingly and willingly joining a conspiracy. Depending on the outcome of this case, at least to this point, being signed to a record label, even a rap record label, is not a crime in the US. What else hasn't the state shown? They haven't shown a pattern of racketeering activity. And the key here is pattern. And part of the key to pattern is there has to be interrelatedness. And I'm sorry about the legalese. I promise I am. But I have to talk about it. These acts have to be interrelated. And instead, what you've seen for a year of your time is isolated incident after isolated incident. We're going to throw everything against the wall and hope something sticks. But even if a few things stick, if they're not interrelated, it is not a pattern. So I believe that when you look at all of the evidence, you're going to need to go back to the jury room. And I believe once you deliberate, you're going to find that Mr. Kendrick is not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of conspiracy to violate RICO. The last charges, counts 57, 58, 61, and 63. These are the last four counts against Mr. Kendrick. All of those relate or are based upon drugs and guns found at Jeffrey Williams' house. Not a single witness, photograph, fingerprint, lab test, DNA, everything you can imagine. Nothing shows that Mr. Kendrick possessed any of those guns and drugs. Nothing. When they arrested Mr. Kendrick that day, did they test his clothing for any type of samples that there might be drugs or? No, nothing. You didn't see any of that. Why was he arrested? Why is he arrested for drugs and guns? It's merely his presence at Jeffrey Williams' house that day. The judge is also going to tell you this, and bear with me while I read this, because it's too long to memorize. You are not authorized to find a person who was merely present at the scene of the commission of a crime at the time was committed guilty of consent in and concurrence in the commission of the crime unless the evidence shows beyond a reasonable doubt that such person committed the alleged crime, helped in the actual perpetration of the crime, or participated in the criminal endeavor just by being at Jeffrey Williams' house. I don't know about y'all, but when someone invites me over to their home, I do not ask before I go there, do you have drugs stashed away throughout your house? I do not ask before I go there, have you got a machine gun hidden under the couch in the basement? Have you got guns stashed in your cabinets? I don't ask that. And when I get to their house, I don't go looking for those things. Why did they charge him with this? Why did they charge Mr. Kendrick with this? Because, as I have told you, and from what you could see in this courtroom, Mr. Kendrick has done nothing but work on his music, but they have to drag him in. They have to suck him in to this vortex caused by their relentless, ridiculous pursuit of Jeffrey Williams. It is offensive and it is absurd, and presumably they felt they needed to do it to help out on the RICO case and to help get Jeffrey Williams. Briefly turning to each of those counts, count 57, participation in criminal street gang activity. That is purely based on his alleged possession of marijuana and a firearm. But again, no one got up here and said Mr. Kendrick possessed any of the firearms or any of the drugs at the house. Now, here's what the state is likely to say. This is what I'm anticipating. Possession can be one of two ways, and you will hear the judge instruct you on this as well. It can be actual possession, you're holding it, or constructive possession. Constructive possession requires the state to show that Mr. Kendrick intended to possess those weapons, intended to possess those drugs. So when the state tells you that, I want you to please remember what I've just told you and think, what witnesses have you seen? What evidence has been presented that Mr. Kendrick intended to possess those weapons or those drugs or that marijuana? Nothing. Zero. Donut hole, nothing burger. And the use of lyrics and artistic expression against individuals is wrong, it's un-American, and it shows the desperation of the state that they have to reach to that level in order to try to make a case against Mr. Kendrick. You can show that maybe, just maybe, we really do believe it when we tell people that through hard work, you can pull yourself up from wherever you came from. And that we, as Americans, as people, we believe in redemption. So I ask you to please remember that during and after the state's closing, to remember that when you're deliberating, to remember that each of you individually gets to make that decision of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So I'm going to ask for the sale, because that is what you're supposed to do, right? And I'm going to ask you to go back there, deliberate, and come back with not guilty verdicts for Mr. Kendrick on all the charges against him. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for the last year of your life that you sacrificed to be here and fulfill your roles as citizens. I really appreciate it.
Man, now that is how you close a case out. Talking about A+ on a closing argument. Is it safe to say free yak? Man, Weinstein just went on a defensive attack. And in my personal opinion, that was enough to actually have the jury actually say free yak, not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Y'all gonna charge this man for constructive possession? What does that even mean? I mean, I know what it means, but I'm saying, like, if you're gonna charge somebody on a RICO constructive possession, the intent to possess at somebody else's house, Man, come on, man. Now, the state, it showed you, like Weinstein said, that is a desperation move. So, my opinion, Yak was also only put on this actual RICO just to enhance the actual name. Why? Because he already had a previous history. It only made sense. But the state, the state didn't go away because, man, they sent ADA Hilton up here to close this case. And, gotta be fair. Man, even though she was yelling and talking loud, she definitely got the actual evidence and laid it all out. It's dead.
We talked about the time, so it's not 8:08. Remember, this time is off by a few moments. And that's them coming down the street in the Infinity, shooting. Of course, you're going to see, I'm going to play this all this, the reaction, what happens in the store. You got babies running. Bullets have no names. And they have the audacity to tell you that we're sitting here trying to charge people of color? No. You should not have me sit here on a Saturday trying to get your hair cut and have bullets come inside of a barbershop. Bullets have no names. And there was babies in the front. But you just spraying down the street for what? For your status in YSL? So you can show Mr. Williams that you big and mad? That's what this is about. And that's Donovan's brother. Outside. I submit he saw what happened, but you know what? He ain't going to tell us. He ain't going to talk to the police, because that's what the gang culture is. So this is the Texaco. That's Northside Drive. And here are two streets. This one's a one-way street, but they don't follow the law, so I submit that they went up the one-way street. And it's another street. They didn't went up either. I submit that they went up the one-way street because, again, they don't follow the law. So when they turn right, they switch cars behind here. They switch behind here. It takes no time to drive up the wrong-way street, drive back down, and come back down and do their shit. That's where they switch the cars at. They both. I guess you didn't have to show you. And this is where he talks about it. I'm not going to play it for you, but that's what he said. And let me tell you something. This is how you know they switch cars. We told you he came in the Infinity with Javorth Bradford, right? This is Javorth Bradford phone records. After the murder, this is him between 6:36 and 7:19. You see the crime scene, he's stationary around the crime scene, right? There's a gap in time between 7:19 and 7:24. At 7:24, between 8:08, this is where Bradford's home is, right? From 7:31 all the way to 8:08. What's over here? Oak Drive. OG Bentley House. Where they said they got rid of the guns. Let me tell you what he's doing. He waiting for them to come back. And you want to know how we know that Yak isn't in the car with him anymore? This call right here.
Using security. You may start the conversation now.
Yeah.
You hear what he said? Where Yak Gotti at? We waiting for him to pull up. That's at 7:42. That's when, let's go back, y'all. That's when he waiting down here. At 7:42, which is one of the calls that's right here, Yak ain't with him. You want to know why? Because Yak with the other 3 murderers. That's where Yak at. What evidence do we have? No, we don't have DNA. You want to know why? They got rid of the car. No, we don't have DNA. You want to know why? Because they got rid of the guns. All we have is what they told their co-conspirators. And that's what I have to bring to you. What I have are the phone records. What I have are the surveillance videos to corroborate what the co-conspirators said. Because I don't have those things. I wish I had them, but they got rid of it. They're both, Chanel and Donovan, are affiliated, associated with YFN. But they want you to believe that this is just 2 totally unrelated cases. Oh, and Shannon is supposed to be the shooter in both of them? The one who's always on go? He says it himself, but Quindarius said it too. The one who wants to do the murders because he wants status in the game? But they want to tell you, don't believe any evidence that the state brought. Don't believe any of it. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you not to do that. You know, Mr. Drinks, Young man maybe trying to find his way, maybe getting caught up in the wrong crowd. But on that day, he should have been able to go to his girlfriend's house. He should have been able to maybe decide that these aren't the friends he want to be with. But no, this is what they did to him. Left him at the light like this. And for what? Off a social media post? This is trash that they're doing in our community. Same thing with Donovan. Donovan was trying to turn his life around. Donovan was trying to get into the music business. Donovan was trying to leave that gang stuff alone. He up here drinking his glass of wine when you see the picture. But what did they do? Off of what? Because Donovan was at the barbershop joking, laughing outside. You see the surveillance video? And left him like this. All in the name of YSL. All in the name of the game that they want to tell you is a music group. It's music. This ain't music. This is not a song right here. Y'all, this is real life. Real dead bodies. Real dead people. Real shootings. This ain't no song over a beat. And they know when they brought him to it, with his flag tattoo, his emergent tattoo, what they were doing. Ladies and gentlemen, they are guilty of every single count that they are both charged with. Mr. Atkins told you what this was about. Destruction of people. Destruction of the community that they live in. Deception. They want to deceive you by telling you that these people in here are just lying just to lie. They're trying to deceive you to tell you that this is all about rap music, rap business. It is not. This is about death. How many dead bodies at the hands of YSL? How many people shot at the hands of YSL? They are a gang by every definition of the word. And you want to talk about we are here just trying to get people of color? No, I'm trying to get gang members to stop committing violent acts in this community, in Fulton County, where each of their victims are people of color. The people that they destroyed, the people that they hurt, the people that they tarnished. Young boys. Rodalius Ryan could have had a promise in life. But what is it? He out here murdering folk at the hands of YSL. Christian Eppinger at the hands of YSL. Go catch you a body. That's how you become slime. That's what he says in his song. Go catch you a body. I'll show you how to be slime. And that's what these little boys are doing. Catching a body to be slime. But they want to tell you that we got a vendetta on people of color? It's ridiculous. It's absurd. And intimidation. These two defendants, Mr. Kendrick and Mr. Stillwell, are guilty. They are guilty of murder. They are guilty of gang acts. They're guilty of conspiracy to violate RICO. And I ask of you, look at the evidence. Look at the law. I know it took some time. I know you probably want to go home and get your turkey. I know I get it. But I am asking you all to go back there, finish this marathon, finish this race, hold them accountable for their actions. When you apply the law with the facts and the evidence, there's only one just conclusion, that these defendants are guilty. Ladies and gentlemen, evil prevails when good men and women do nothing. I'm asking you to do something. I'm asking you to hold them accountable. I'm asking you to return a verdict of guilty. Thank you.
So let's dig. So after the state and the defense actually rest their closing arguments, ask yourself, are you convinced beyond a reasonable doubt? Now, another thing that I found interesting was when the prosecutor actually said, I don't have the evidence. I wish I had the evidence.
'Cause I
No
don't have those
DNA.
things.
They
I
got
wish
rid
I
of
had
it. I
but
wish
they
I
got
had
rid
it
of
to
it.
show you. What did that mean? Now, in my opinion, I feel like the DA actually just dropped the ball right there in front of the jury when they actually made that statement. To leave the key evidence out, you already haven't proven beyond reasonable doubt. Make that make sense. Now, the defense also did good when they tackled the wiretaps and the use of lyrics, arguing that the state took vague conversation and artistic expressions directly out of context just to fit their narrative. Now, the ironic part is, whether the state lied or the defense lied, is all in the jury's hands at this time. Will the jury actually believe that Young Thug was a mastermind behind the criminal conspiracy, or will they side with the defense, showing that the state hasn't proven that case beyond a reasonable doubt? Let's be real, the jury has a monumental task. After sitting 167 days through lies, investigations, botched interrogations, and witness intimidation, ask yourself this: what would you believe? Did the defense prove that this actual case from the state was all just a bust? And after all this time, has the state actually proven beyond a reasonable doubt who is responsible for that? What about Mr. Drinks that night at the light? Is it possible that the state got it wrong and the defense got it right? And whether the defendants are actually found guilty or not guilty, just remember, it still doesn't bring back the victims' lives. Now, I do understand that Shard had to go hard. But man, in my personal opinion, he took it a tad bit too long. I feel like he was on the verge of actually losing a jury. Now, maybe I'm not there, so I can't honestly say, but just listening to him, it seemed like he went from hot to medium real quick. Now, luckily, Weinstein was right behind him with the actual fire up, so they did turn the stove up right there in the courtroom. But the state, I was actually impressed by Miss Hilton's actual close. Now, not saying that I was convinced, I said I was impressed because she didn't come to play. Atkins laid it out, and she came through right up with the follow-up. And she was very passionate about everything that she had to say. But ask yourself this: where's the residue? Where's the DNA? And where are the reports? No supporting investigation, no supporting witnesses, no corroborating stories. Plus the reports disappeared. But you do have a lot of corroborating stories, and then you want the jury to go off of the corroboration of y'all's investigation from the corroboration of the co-conspirators from their peers. Whole nother story. So what y'all think? Who delivered the stronger case? The defense or the state? In my personal opinion, I feel like the defense did enough for both of these defendants to actually walk. But again, it's really up to the jury. Because remember, the jury hasn't seen everything that we've actually seen watching this case from the outside. They haven't seen all of the lies. They haven't seen the different exposure. They haven't seen the incompetence and the incomplete evidence. What they have seen is no fingerprints, no DNA, no direct witnesses to tie both of these last two defendants to some of these last two investigations. Now, it's more interesting because, one, they used the lyrics from SB saying how he rapped about how he beat a body. This time, guess what? They didn't just put one on you. It's two, three, and a possible. So that is even more interesting because it seems like they're actually trying to show a pattern. Will the jury actually believe the actual state's narrative? Because remember, it's all about premeditated act when it comes to conspiracy. It doesn't have to actually be acted out or completed. It just has to be thought in unison. Will these two defendants actually walk? Y'all jump in the comments, let me know y'all's thoughts. In my personal opinion, I think today the jury and the state will actually break apart and the defense possibly just won this case. I would have actually liked to see the last few defendants that took those pleas go all the way because I feel like this case actually would have been a stronger case for the defense to actually overcome all the obstacles that were laid before them from the state, like probation for 15 years. But that's another story. Y'all jump in the comments, let me know y'all's thoughts. Will these last two defendants walk? Will the jury actually see the state actually fail to connect the dots? And again, do we still know who's responsible for the shot? Jump in the comments, let me know y'all's thoughts. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Definitely tap that notification bell so you won't miss a drop whenever we drop. And tap the like button to help the channel continue to grow. Don't be a hater all your life. Tap the like button. It's free. Y'all know the vibes. Remember, the greater the height, the greater the weight. As always, the life you save might be your very own. Until next time, gone.